This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. Your hosts are Patrick and Catherine Andrews.
Join us each week as we explore a wide range of metaphysical topics such as dreams, astrology, intuitive readings, and life purpose. You'll receive practical guidance so that you can live your most awesome life.
Learn more about what we do at intuitiveschool.com and connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Welcome to Spirit's Journey. We are coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. We are here in the Heartland, holding the energy for spiritual truth and awareness. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Catherine. Welcome, everyone. So I'm super excited about our show today because it's covering a topic that both Patrick and I are passionate about, which is natural health, medicine, and spirituality, the blending of science and metaphysics. So today we have Mary Bonaccorsi. We met Mary years ago. She was a student of ours in Chicago, and here we are connecting again. So let me tell you a little about Mary. She's a dual board certified family practice and psychiatric nurse practitioner, currently working in a traditional hospital system in the Midwest. She's a lifelong student of science, psychology, and metaphysics, and she is striving to find that balance and coordinate all that knowledge. She holds a BS in computer science, a nursing doctorate from Rush University in Chicago, and a postgraduate certificate from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Metaphysically, she studies A Course in Miracles. She is a Reiki master and a member of Mensa. So welcome, Mary.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's great to hear your voices again after all these years. And happy solstice.
Oh, thank you. Same to you.
I know. It's a special day to do the radio show. Here in Kansas, it's going to be up to 60 degrees, so it's a great day to be outside. You're up there in Wisconsin. You're probably a little bit colder than we are.
A little colder, but it's sunny, so no complaints when the sun's out.
That makes a big difference.
So I can't believe our paths are crossing again. Mary contacted me when she found out we were doing the radio show and said, hey, I'd love to be on and tell my story. So, Mary, you've got an interesting blend coming from real traditional nursing background and science, and then you got into metaphysics. So what's your story, and how did a very traditional nursing student get into all this metaphysical stuff?
Yeah, I'm happy to share my story. And I turned 60 this year, so I do have a long history. And I'll start when I was, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago. I was the second of 12 children, so an Italian father, an Irish mother. The family, it was Catholic. It was considered a good family in the parish. Everyone was did well in school, good athletes, good community members. But I always felt like something was wrong, something was missing. I didn't understand. So I feel like from a very young age, I was just searching to understand, searching to find understanding, to find a sense of peace, to figure out what was going on, why things felt so off balance, incongruent. I followed my what I thought was right. I was a good student. I got a degree in computer science. I worked as a computer programmer. Probably around 30 years old, I was dating an ex-NFL football player. So things on the outside all looked good. I'm with this big, handsome guy, and I have a nice job with a decent salary, and things still felt empty. Things still didn't feel right. The person I was dating happened to be sober from alcohol, and was involved in a 12-step program, and he said, maybe you should go see a therapist or something. And this was my first exposure to kind of mental health. So I was aware what physical health was, exercising, keeping your body healthy and strong. But this was my first exposure to therapy and emotional wellness. And it was a big turning point for me. So I attended therapy. I was told that I had been emotionally abused in childhood, which when it was explained to me, it made sense and it felt right, but it was the first time I had heard of it. Looking back on the childhood with 12 children, there were some financial limitations. I'm not sure that anyone would be able to give proper attention and guidance to that many children. And so it really motivated me to understand more about myself, about the world. How does this happen that I'm 28, 30 years old and just now finding out that in ways to change my thinking so I did feel more congruent, more myself, finding out who I was. And I made a big shift at that time and did decide to go back to school and go to nursing school. So my science brain, which, I considered like male energy, left and right brain, left being male, characteristic, scientific, mathematical, and I was kind of tapping into my female side at this point and saying, okay, I need to be doing something that feels more meaningful. Although I had this good job and this good salary, it just felt empty. It didn't feel like I cared that much about if your computer could go faster. And so I did a good inventory about what were my strengths and desires, and nursing kind of filled the bill as a mix of science, but also caring for people. And so I went back and got the nursing degree, and I still was doing things, that were externally very successful appearing. I ran marathons, and, I'm getting this doctorate from a good university, and I'm proud of all of these things. But still, there was this inner compass saying, you're off track. You're off. Where are you going? It looks like you're going in the right direction, but it still feels like you're off center a little bit. And so let's see, I think then the next big course correction, I really have to say, was coming across your school. And so I remember, so I was traveling. I never got married. I never had children. That was all, I just never had the desire or urge for that. And I was fine, satisfied with that. I was traveling a lot internationally. I remember being in Thailand when I was 40 and just being overcome when I was near this Buddhist temple on a small mount, and just fell to my knees saying, I want to be a better person. And I didn't even know what that meant. I knew I wasn't a bad person. It was a law-abiding, contributing to community, member of society. But there, like I said, still something off center. And so I came across your school of metaphysics just happenstance. I think you were connected to a Evolve crystal shop, or
the Evolve was actually part of our school. They had their store in the front of our school.
Yeah, okay. So I would drive past there every day on my work I was working at another hospital in Chicago at the time. So I would drive past and say, that looks like an interesting shop. I should stop in there. I didn't know anything about crystals. I didn't know anything about metaphysics really. I mean, I guess I should say that I did start like in my mid-30s. I picked up a book called Life 101, Peter McWilliams, and it's just kind of a casual book that has quotes and little chapters, but I would read them and it's like, yeah, this is true. This is true. And the quotes would be from Albert Einstein to Carl Jung to, Hippocrates, food is medicine, all these things that were like, it's true. It's true. But I had never really, no one had talked to me about this before. And I had never, and then I was caught up with like Oprah and Dr. Phil and all these people that were like making sense to me, but still very commercial. Deepak Chopra, and those are some of the people I was listening to and continue to listen to and read. But then I came upon your school and started, unfortunately, along with a nurse practitioner who was my supervisor at the time, was interested as well. So if you remember Terry, so she attended.
I was just going to ask, what was her name? Because I remember you two always would come together to the classes. Of course, yeah, I remember Terry.
Yeah, so I was so fortunate to be working in this hospital system, with this medical model, but having a supervisor that was also open to metaphysics and kind of seeking, herself. And so we took classes there, and oh my God, my eyes, my third eye, my everything just opened up, just learning for the first time about everything is energy and past lives and numerology.
Mary, would you think, instead of saying for the first time, do you think you learned all this in past lives and it was more of a remembrance of what you already knew, which is why it rang true to you?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. I absolutely believe that. I don't know if you remember, my past life was, my individual past life reading was, I was a person from Atlantis, so I believe my soul is very, very old. I don't believe it. I know it. And this is where I start to get a little sketchy about how to say things, because I am working in a traditional setting. I can't say this in my office to clients.
Right.
This half of my belief system, I'm well-liked, successful nurse practitioner. I bring what I know and understand metaphysically to my traditional practice, although I don't speak about it. I still can apply it, but that might be another question, or another answer. But so your school just answered so many things for me, and I just was an eager student. And I remember I learned about meditation from the first course was Patrick teaching meditation, and I would get past life crossings, which helped me understand my relationship with my parents and different boyfriends across time, and really kind of distilled down a lot of understanding for me that everything, life is for learning, for loving, for learning, to make progress.
Yeah. And so, Mary, I was curious, since you chose an interesting family with, 12 kids, based on the reading that you had about that, what have you distilled as the reason? Why do you think you chose those parents, that particular environment to grow up in?
Yeah. It was very hard for me to understand, because there was emotional abuse, there was sexual abuse as well in the family, and there's a lot. There's addiction issues, there's depression and anxiety. To answer your question, I think that this life for me is a life of atonement, or it almost feels like a quick review of a lot of healing of a lot of relationships that either I was harmed or I harmed others. And this life, I'm interacting and coming across many of these other relationships in order to heal. And now the situation with my family members is really positive, where even at the time I was in school at your school, it wasn't. I still felt very much alone. I didn't have, I would try to teach and explain to siblings when I was younger how things felt, and I wasn't getting anyone's agreement on it. I was being told that I was wrong, everything is good. Many of the siblings have come to an understanding more consistent with mine. And so I think that I did choose both my parents to learn from them, to teach them, as well as my siblings, to learn from them, to teach them. I've learned a lot about non-judgment and acceptance. I had a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, during different phases of my life. So it's been a journey, and it's still ongoing. I'm still learning.
It never ends, Mary.
It never ends. It never ends. If our souls are 10,000 years old, this life is just a day.
It's like a blink of the eye. Well,
it's just a blink.
Yeah, and I always, when I look around and I see people doing things that aren't so great, I think if they only knew that this is just the dress rehearsal, they think this is it, and it's really just the dress rehearsal in terms of the eternity that we're going to move into. And Mary, I wanted to comment. It was really interesting. You said you just turned 60.
Yeah.
So you talked about when you were 28 is when you started to kind of get into this stuff. And I just wanted to say that at age 28, 29, 30, 31, we go through what's called the Saturn Return, which astrologically is a universal event that we all go through. It's the big wake-up call where we're, woken up to what we're really here to do, and people go through major changes. And it happens every 29 and a half years. So guess what? You're right in the midst of your second Saturn return.
Yay! I like Saturn Return.
Well, you're probably one of the few people that would say that, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Saturn is challenge, it's limitation. However, why do you say you like it?
Yeah, well, I am. Another thing I learned from your school is that I'm number 5 life path. So I like change and freedom. I guess I want to say too that from what I learned from your school too, really validated for me a lot of things I knew, but I thought I was wrong. Because I wasn't understood by siblings or teachers, so just getting the validation of what I knew was true, like you said, was so meaningful for me. I've struggled with low self-esteem and confidence issues. And it's just something that I have. It doesn't make sense that I have it. I have these accomplishments. I have. It doesn't make sense that I have it, but I do, and I still struggle with it. I said before this talk to Patrick, I said I'm nervous. He said, just talk like a conversation.
Yeah, well, Mary, it's interesting. You were saying, you don't understand why I have this low self-esteem. You've done all these great accomplishments. Well, over and over again, we see this even in myself. And what I've learned is that the ego, at the core, we have these feelings of low self-worth. And so then what we do is the ego pushes us to go out there and prove to ourselves that we're worthy. And so we get these degrees. We do all these amazing achievements to override this sense of low self-worth. So until we get to the core and heal that, there's this urge to feel like we need to do more. So we look good, that we're a good person, that we're accomplished. So that's how I look at this phenomenon of people who are extremely successful, yet they say, well, you would never guess in a million years they had low self-esteem or self-worth.
Right. I agree 100%. And I know I did that. I know that now when I give my credentials, there's almost a little bit of like, if they know what I know, they know that this is a sign of my low self-esteem, So it's okay. Yeah.
I was going to mention. Oh, go ahead.
I forget too. But it's me. Yeah, it's me. All I knew when I was little was, this is what I thought normal was, or this is what I thought would bring happiness. And so I did that. And so I credit myself for doing that and having the diligence and to do that kind of thing. But of course, it doesn't fill that, that sense of self.
Yeah, I was going to mention, sometimes I've seen people get into what I could almost describe as like certificate syndrome, where, they express the interest in teaching or doing certain things, and then they're like, oh, but I don't have enough background, I don't have enough experience, I don't have the right certification. So they're always just, getting the one more degree, the one more certification, and, they just keep pursuing all these degrees and certifications and things like that. And I think that is maybe something that kind of is almost like a Band-Aid to help like that sense of low self-esteem that maybe, feeling like we aren't ready or we can't accomplish it. But when we look within, through meditation and different practices like that, then we realize we're tapping into all these past experiences that are vast. I mean, like you were talking about the past life readings. And so I was wondering if maybe there were some particular lessons, because I'm not sure a lot of people have had experience with those type of readings. Are there any particular lessons that stand out that you might be able to share that you had from one of the readings?
So the one with my father, he was like a military sergeant in the past life reading, and he saw me as special, but because of that was a little harsher to me. And so I can't remember the lessons. Which maybe that's why I'm still struggling. But to me, they all have to do. And then another one I had a past life crossing with an ex-boyfriend in a relationship I was really struggling with, and in that life, he had left me out of just his own sense of not being able to commit, but I in that life had taken it personally, like it was a rejection of me. So similarly, it happened this life as well, but the lesson was to learn that it wasn't about me that the relationship ended. It was about his inability to manage within a relationship. So it's always about forgiveness of others, forgiveness of self. In that case, it was forgiving him. He was just being who he was, and for me not to take on that pain. And with my father as well, who was pretty abusive, it was really an expression of his pain, and I took it on as me being wrong. So some of that, it's, I guess, like I said, it all boils down for me to loving, accepting yourself and others, knowing that everyone's doing the best they can, creating distance if it's harmful to you, is some of those kind of lessons that I've applied.
And now you also, Mary, you're a student in A Course of Miracles. And I know a big focus of that work is the healing, the forgiveness stuff. So has that been a pivotal teaching for you in terms of overcoming resentment and anger towards people?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. I think when I look at situations at people, I'm looking at them in several different levels, it appears. So there's what we see in the physical world. There's a concrete, person in front of you, and we have this relationship and, in the setting and all that. But then on the other level, I'm looking at it as the spiritual, the energetic exchange between me and the other person. And I think that people are mirroring back to you, aspects of yourself for you to forgive or honor. And that's all Course in Miracles stuff, and then also just being the witness that none of this is even happening, that this is just a big lucid dream that we're in.
I love that. Yeah. Because when we do our dream interpretation, we tell people, they're like, this was the dream, not the reality. And so I always like to play around with people and say, are you sure about that? Maybe the dream world is more real than this? But Mary, this has been awesome. We're going to go into the break and we're going to continue the talk on the other side.
All right. So we are going to be back
you.
after. Oh, you're welcome. We're going to be back after the break with Mary Bonaccorsi. She is a dual board-certified family practice and psychiatric nurse practitioner who's currently working in the Midwest. And so keep in mind during the break that PFR is a listener-supported station. You can go to the Spirit's Journey page and help this station continue to offer you this great programming. This is Spirit's Journey on Truth Frequency Radio, simulcast on One Is Talk Radio. We'll see you on the other side.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are PFR, your protection from deception.
Live, Truth Radio, simulcast on One Is Talk Radio. And we are here today with Mary Bonaccorsi. She is a dual certified family practice and psychiatric nurse practitioner.
All right. So, folks, I want to get into talking about the blend of metaphysics and science. And you are very metaphysical, yet you're working in this real traditional medical practice. So, Mary, tell us what it's like. How do you see the future of integrative medicine going on right now?
Yeah, so it's so interesting, and I love what I do where I'm at right now. I do identify myself as an empath. I can feel energy. I could feel emotion very easily. So in my role as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, patients come in to me, and they're coming to me to be prescribed medicine, to be prescribed Zoloft or Prozac or something for their anxiety, depression, bipolar. So I listen to them. I always have the integrative, mind on. I've taken classes, attended conferences at University of Arizona, has a great integrative mental health conference. University of Wisconsin-Madison has some nice interdisciplinary integrative medicine department. And so in my mind, I want to treat the patient in the most natural, least invasive way, depending on the acuity of their symptoms. So if they're coming in to me saying, my friend just started Zoloft and she says it works great, and I think that's what I need, I'll back up and discuss, first of all, therapy alone, was always recommended at our clinic. It's a policy that if you're seeing a prescriber that you have to attend therapy, which I appreciate greatly, which is traditional cognitive behavioral therapy or DBT or EMDR, which is a treatment for PTSD. But I'll talk to the client about supplements and natural medicine therapy. And then after a discussion, it's always a discussion between what the client desires, what I think they need, what they would most benefit from, what they're motivated for. I might say a patient would do just fine if she went to acupuncture but if she's not open to that, the acupuncture won't work, right? There's a lot of different options for treatment of health, both mental and physical, but the patient has to be open and the severity of the illness has to be within the range where it could be treated. So I work along that whole continuum from just natural energy medicine or natural supplements to prescribing a medicine.
That's awesome. That's great, though, Mary, that you're able to suggest acupuncture and supplements, without getting in trouble. Because I know sometimes a doctor can't even mention an herb and his license is going to be taken away. So because you're in this integrative area, you've got a lot more freedom. So I'm impressed by that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm lucky. I don't think I could work anywhere else. Within the hospital, like our insurance will actually cover, there's an excellent acupuncturist in the health system and some chiropractors. So I can refer, and I have referred them for anxiety there, and it's covered by their insurance. I know on the East and West Coast, they're much more progressive with this kind of integrative medicine. So I do feel fortunate in the Midwest, in the middle of Wisconsin, that I work for a system that does. I can't really talk energy, but I'll use other words to describe it that are more maybe acceptable in the medical setting. And the other thing I really use to my advantage, I think, that makes me an effective practitioner is that I can feel the emotions of clients. So if the client is sitting there and I say, well, how do you feel about your husband? And this happens regularly, every day. The patient might say, I'm not sure, but before they say that, I feel a strong emotion, like a gust of an emotion will hit my chest. And it might be anger. And so I know what the emotion is. I know the answer to the question, but the person isn't aware of it yet, or willing to admit it, or ready to admit it, or if she admits it, it's her psyche can't handle it.
Right,
so
right.
So it's information I have that I can then gently kind of work towards, because I feel that wellness, being well, is about being truthful and congruent and, feeling, acting, behaving, saying, in a congruent way. And not many of us can do that, or certainly not do it all the time. And so I just try and help people get there, get more congruent. This isn't my metaphor. It's another psychologist that I was reading, but she called it hollow bunny syndrome, that where a lot of people are like the Easter bunnies, the chocolate Easter bunnies that look fine on the outside, but you crack them and they're empty, and then you're like, bummer.
I wondered where you were going with
image.
I wondered where you were going to go with the hollow bunny syndrome. I was like, what?
I remember growing up, I was always disappointed it didn't have some kind of sweet goo on the inside or something. You break into it and it's hollow.
But Mira, I wanted to go back to something you said, which was interesting. You said, if they're not open to the acupuncture, they don't believe in it, it's not going to work. And that is powerful, the power of belief, if somebody believes in a medicine working. But I also wanted to add, for example, with homeopathy, you don't even have to know what it is. and it will work for people. I mean, there's been amazing cases, and I do just want to let everybody know who's ever tried homeopathy like I have and has found it to be like freaking amazing, that homeopathy is under attack right now by the FDA. They're trying to limit our ability to purchase homeopathic. So if that's something you want to be able to continue purchasing homeopathics, do go to Americans for Homeopathy Choice. There's a lot of groups right there right now fighting for homeopathy, and I just wanted to put that out there. You can go on there. You can write letters to your senator. Some of these websites will actually tell you exactly what you can do, and of course, you can always donate. So anyway, just wanted to say that about homeopathy. Anyway, Mary, so have you found that even if somebody doesn't believe in something, that sometimes they'll try it and they'll be like, wow, that worked really well?
Yeah, and it may be true. I guess my belief or what I've witnessed so far is not so much, just like, and so I may be wrong. I mean, obviously you've had seen other results with the homeopathy, but and I think I just meet a lot of resistance. Like if I suggest that they just won't even go, or it's the same like therapy. Therapy will work, but you have to be willing to participate in it. You have to be open to it. And so right now, that's kind of how I think about things. Like you have to be open to it for it to be effective. Or maybe I should modify that a little bit. You won't. It will be more effective, if you're more open. So you're not blocking against its potential.
So what do you see right now, the atmosphere in traditional hospitals in terms of, opening up to alternative, and what have you identified? I'm curious, is the mindset of, some of the people in the medical establishment that are against natural medicine, want to force their medicine on other people. What have you discovered about that?
Yeah, so I think where I am, and it's all individual, my philosophy is something like, can't we all get along? Like there's a place for both of it, for traditional medicine, there's a place for integrative, and the important thing is picking the right one to use at the right time for the right person. And so when traditional medicine says, all of that is bunk, of course that's not accurate. And when natural medicine says everything can be healed naturally, that's not true either, depending on the advanced stage of a disease and things, other factors. So I just want everyone to understand that it all works. It all works. But the trick is discerning what to use when, with what person, what patient. And I guess that's what I'm working towards, just in my little part of the world where I am, and referring people to acupuncture, and, having people talk about, I start conversations, and I do think that everyone, well, I guess this is another philosophy of mine. I see everything as male and female energy, and everything trying to reach homeostasis. So within a person, you're trying to balance those two energies. Within a family, it's trying to find peace by balancing those energies within a community, and so forth. And so I see the whole field of health and medicine trying to reach homeostasis by balancing traditional medicine, which I see as male energy, with the natural methods, which feels female to me, softer, gentler kind of energy.
I love that, because I talk a lot about how, everything in nature is always trying to achieve balance. And once it's there, it doesn't last because something's going to trigger something to go off balance, within our blood. We're either too alkaline or too acidic. And so there's always this striving for homeostasis. And I think each body is different. Some people's bodies just need like a little nudge to get back on track. Others need, a big slap or a stronger push to get back in alignment. And I think at the core, the healthier we are, body, mind, spirit, not just physically, the easier it is to get back, just like a little nudge, That's been my kind of theory too.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that you need a lot of different levels of healing to get to, a pretty well-balanced state. So like in psychiatry, you might need medicine plus therapy plus acupuncture or something. So I think that different levels of the body need to be healed. And that's done in different ways with different modalities.
Now, Mary, we were talking about balance, and I recall in the beginning that you noticed something wasn't quite right because, as you described it, you just felt a little off center. And to me, that's kind of a sign that you are noticing that you are getting out of balance within yourself. So I was wondering here before we go, if you could give some suggestions to people, because I know there's probably a lot of people out there who may be feeling the same way right now, where they know something is off. They just can't put their finger on it. They're kind of searching for what's going on here. I know things aren't quite right, aren't quite where I'd like them to be. So based on your journey that you shared at the beginning of the show, what kind of suggestions would you give people in terms of where would they go? What would they look for? What would they maybe start to include in their lives to get some answers and to get back on track and to get back into balance?
My first answer is trust yourself. So even though I was raised in the Catholic Church, it didn't feel right to me, but people say, well, we're all Catholic. You're supposed to be Catholic. It's like, no, I'm not Catholic. I know I'm not, and Catholicism is wonderful for the people that it's helpful for, but it wasn't right for me. And so you have to listen to that inner guide, go to where you're drawn. So even if it doesn't seem normal or natural, or you don't know anyone else that's doing it, if you feel like stopping in that crystal shop, stop there. And from there, you'll be led to something else. Or the same with authors. If a book catches your eye, pick it up, and that book will lead you to something else. So it's listening to that inner guide. That's it.
That's huge.
Yourself.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Is trusting the inner self. And one of the things that we've always said about our school, when Patrick and I set out to create our own school, we said, we want to honor everybody's individual path, because so many places try to direct the person in their philosophy, their way. And so we wanted to be a school that just presents the information, teaches people, and then let you do your own path, because everybody's path is so different and unique. And I think that more and more people are looking for someone who's going to honor their path instead of try to move them in a particular direction.
Yes, I agree. Our job here is to be you-ier. I mean, that's a phrase that
you-ier, that's
pastor,
great.
Yeah. A pastor in the chapel at the hospital where I used to work, he used to say that, and that's the truth. Finding out who you are, what your strengths are, what your path is. Don't judge other people's paths. They're following their path. It has nothing to do with you. So those kind of things. And I don't like when it might sound like pat answers, general responses, but they're true. You understand them at a different level when you actually do it.
I think that's great advice, because not only, don't judge other people on their path, but I think it's important not to judge yourself based on what other people are doing too, because sometimes I've experienced maybe myself or other people kind of judging themselves, feeling like they're not doing as much because somebody else is, doing 3 hours of meditation a day or something like that. That may not be your path. And I also, when you were talking about just listening to those little intuitive nudges, some of the greatest changes in direction in my life have been just those little out of the blue nudges, like, oh, stop here. I pass a bookstore. I was like, oh, you got to stop here. Or I remember when I was in college, when I really that's when I considered I first started really getting serious about the study of metaphysics, is when I was in college. And I would just have this urge to go to the library, and I would just be browsing. And then all of a sudden I would just find this amazing book that would open me up to just a whole new way of looking at things. And so, it's just listening to those little guidances. The guidance is there if we listen to it. And it is up to us, though, to listen and then act on it. If we don't act on it, you'll never know where it might lead you.
Yes, that's exactly right. So listening to the nudges, and what you taught me, Patrick, at school was really discerning between what are intuitive nudges and what is my thinking, what is my ego, trying to tell me I should be doing. And so receiving those intuitive nudges are really the guidance that you want to pay attention to. And do we have time for a quick story?
Sure.
So you mentioned a library. So when I was in Chicago, I remember going to, and I love libraries, lots of knowledge. But I was in the little McHenry library, and this is when I was taking classes at your school, and I felt there was no one there. It was spirit. I don't know who. I felt something take my right arm, take my hand, lift it up to a book. And I'm just watching my hand move, saying, I'm not doing this. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to let this happen. My hand went on a book that was by W. Somerset Maugham, who's he's an author I've heard of. He wrote Razor's Edge and Of Human Bondage. But the book that my hand was placed on was called Then and Now. And my head was thinking, oh, okay, all right, this is weird, but I'm trusting this. I take the book down, I open it, and the very first sentence of the book says, Baggio Bonaccorsi had a very long day. It was something like that. But the fact was that the character of the book's name was Bonaccorsi.
That is unbelievable, Mary.
Unbelievable. And I just said, okay, this stuff is real.
I know. Once you open the door, we always tell people, you open yourself up to some pretty amazing stuff. Expect the unexpected.
Expected. Yeah.
Well, now, Mary, somebody that you studied with, you mentioned, is Bruce Lipton, who, is kind of like you. He's got this blend of, biology and science infused with metaphysics. So what are some profound teachings from him that have helped you in your integration of metaphysics and science?
Yeah, so I love Bruce Lipton. I do love, any of these like functional medicine doctors, so they're traditionally trained and they have the science, they're starting to come up with the science that explains some of the things that we haven't been able to measure. So Bruce Lipton is a cellular biologist, and he talks about how we could change our genes. That the whole thing of family history of diabetes means I'm going to have diabetes. And he's saying, no, this is false. We might have passed these things on because we told the next generation that they were going to have it, and we continued the same eating habits. But indeed, we do have the power to change all of these things that we previously thought were non-modifiable risk factors for disease. So Yeah, so he's a great, fun, easy to understand scientist that's really bringing evidence to some of the things that, like I said, that haven't been able to be measured before.
Yeah, one of the things we teach people is, when they have a history in their family of, heart disease or diabetes or whatever it is, we say, well, you don't inherit the disease, you inherit the thought pattern that creates the disease. Because
exactly.
We're like sponges as kids. We pick up on the parental thought. And yes, we may have a weakness in that particular area of the body, but the only reason that it succumbs to the disease is because we begin practicing that thought form that our parents did. So I think now as adults, we can look back at the parents and say, what kind of thought forms did they have that created this particular illness so that we don't repeat it? Obviously, we could do, of course, all the natural remedies and things like that. But beyond that, it's, am I thinking like my parents? And, if you have a healthy parent, like I have a mom who's got a constitution like amazing, and I'm like, I observe her way of thinking. And one of the things about her is, she never lets anything stick. She doesn't get resentment or grudges. It just kind of rolls off her. And I'm like, wow, that's profound, because she's going strong at like 82. And so anyway, that's one of the teachings we do with people.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. You might have a family predisposition, just like you say, but it's based on a core belief or thought that's creating this. And that's another part of what I practice in my psychiatry. So before, like, trauma used to be considered just like PTSD, like someone went to war and has trauma. Well, now they're identifying that the whole system, the trauma can be neglect, just lack of support, an absent parent, a parent that has mental illness, and these kind of things dysregulates the nervous system that causes trauma, and then that trauma manifests as autoimmune disease. So arthritis, cancer, fibromyalgia, MS, all of these physical ailments are really based on psychological trauma that was not recognized and not reversed in childhood. So I don't know if that got off track, but it all has to do with these things are preventable if we intervene early, if we have healthy thought patterns, a supportive, environment, decrease toxins in the environment, both emotional and physical, and that's true health promotion, disease prevention kind of behavior.
Well, that's I would say that's one of the most important things that we teach is self-awareness. And so when we can become aware of our thoughts, that gives us the control to change it. And then it's just knowing how to change it. So, all these things people often say, oh yeah, kids grow up to become just like their parents, even if they don't want to. And so it is just taking on all of these old thought patterns. And so when we, can be aware and start making those changes, it's like we can become whoever we want to be. Well, Mary, it's been amazing having you on today. Thank you so much for making time with us. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our show.
All right, folks. Well, have a wonderful holiday season, everybody. Relaxing time with friends and family. We'll catch you guys next Saturday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we love having you all with us, but please check us out on Facebook at Spirits Journey Radio. Be sure to like our page. This has been Spirits Journey live on Truth Frequency Radio, simulcast on One Is Talk Radio. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Catherine. Until